The fondant mermaid was refusing to cooperate. Her delicate, sugary tail had cracked for the third time, and I was contemplating throwing the entire 10-layer monstrosity of a wedding cake out the window of my tiny bakery, the Gilded Crumb. It was 11 post-meridian, the air thick with the scent of vanilla. And my own frustration. My phone buzzed on the flour-dusted counter, displaying a picture of Lyndon with a goofy, lopsided grin. I swiped to answer, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder. Please tell me you have good news. Mermaid number 3 has officially given up the ghost. He chuckled, his voice a warm, low rumble that always managed to smooth out my frayed edges. I think I'm in love with a woman who talks to her pastries. It's a serious relationship, I deadpanned, carefully trying to fuse the broken tail with a bit of sugar glue. So what's up? Are you done with your thing? I still didn't really know what his thing was. Some sort of consulting for his family's business. It was vague, but he was so wonderfully solid and real in every other way, I hadn't pressed it. He'd wander into my shop 3 months ago claiming he was lured in by the smell of cardamom buns, and he'd been a fixture in my life ever since. I am done with the thing, he said, his tone shifting slightly. And about that, there's something we need to talk about before tomorrow night. Tomorrow night? Dinner. At his mother's house. My stomach did a nervous little flip. Okay. Am I going to need a helmet? He laughed, but it sounded a little strained. No, nothing like that. It's just, Thea, when you meet my mother, you're going to understand some things a little better. My family, they're a bit formal. Formal? I said, glancing around my chaotic, cozy bakery. Lyndon, I consider a clean apron to be formal wear. You're going to have to be more specific. There was a long pause. So long that I pulled the phone away to see if we'd been disconnected. Lyndon, I should have told you this from the start, he said, his voice quiet. I was just so tired of it all. And then I met you, and you didn't care about any of it, and it was the most refreshing thing in the world. Care about what? My hands were still, the broken mermaid forgotten. My family's business. It's called the Vance Corporation. The name hung in the air. Vance Corporation wasn't a business, it was an empire. Real estate, tech, global logistics. The Vances weren't just formal, they were practically American royalty. The kind of people whose net worth had commas and the word billion. I sank onto a nearby stool, a fine dusting of flour puffing up around me. Oh, was all I could manage. So, your family is the Vances. Yes, he said, a note of pleading in his voice. And my mother, she can be protective. She's going to have ideas about you, about us, and I need you to know that none of them are true. I love you, Thea. That's the only thing that's real. I took a deep breath, the scent of sugar and my own shattered assumptions filling my lungs. I was no longer a baker going to a nerve-wracking meet the parents' dinner. I was a commoner being led to the castle to be judged by the queen, and I had a very bad feeling the queen already wanted my head. The drive to his mother's estate the next night was silent. Lyndon kept glancing over at me, his hand resting on the center console, not quite touching mine. The simple, elegant dress I'd thought was perfect now felt like a cheap costume. We passed through iron gates taller than my entire storefront, a winding driveway cut through acres of manicured lawn that looked like it was trimmed with nail scissors. And then I saw the house. House wasn't the right word. It was a monument to money, a sprawling stone and glass behemoth that glared down at the world. Lyndon parked the car, and for a moment, we just sat there. Ready? He asked softly. As I'll ever be? I lied. A man in a crisp uniform opened my door before I could touch it. Inside, the silence was vast and expensive. Our footsteps echoed on marble floors. Every surface gleamed. And then she appeared at the top of a grand staircase, a figure of impossible elegance. Eleanor Vance. She was tall and slender, draped in something silk and silvery that probably cost more than my entire education. Her hair was a perfect sculpture of silver and blonde, and her eyes, the same sharp blue as Lyndon's, swept over me with the clinical precision of a scanner. There wasn't a flicker of warmth. "Lyndon, you're late," she said, her voice smooth and cold as glass. She descended the stairs, not looking at him, but at me. "And this must be Thea." She didn't offer a hand. I resisted the urge to curtsy. "It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Vance," I said, my voice sounding unnaturally high. "Eleanor," she corrected, though it didn't sound like an invitation. "Please." Dinner was an exercise in exquisite torture. We sat at a dining table that could have seated 20, a floral arrangement in the center that was more complex than my failed wedding cake. Every time I picked up a piece of silverware, I was conscious of the fact that there were 5 forks. 5. Who needs 5 forks? Eleanor directed all her questions to me, each one a perfectly crafted little dart. "Lyndon tells me you own a bakery," she said, the word bakery tasting like something unpleasant in her mouth. "That must be very quaint." "I enjoy it," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "It's hard work, but it's mine." "Ambition is so important for a young woman," she mused, taking a delicate sip of wine. "Tell me, Thea, what are your larger ambitions?" The unspoken question was clear. "Is my son your ambition? Your retirement plan?" "Right now, I'm trying to perfect a gluten-free brioche," I said with a tight smile. "You'd be surprised how ambitious that is. The science is very temperamental." Lyndon choked on his water, trying to hide a laugh. Eleanor's eyes narrowed by a fraction of a millimeter. "I see. And your family? Are they here in the city?" "No, they're in the Midwest. My father was a librarian and my mom was a teacher." I said it with pride, but in that room, it sounded like a confession of poverty. "Ah," Eleanor said, a world of meaning in that one syllable. "Educators, so noble." The rest of the meal passed in a similar vein. She dissected my life, my education, my tiny apartment above my shop, all with a detached, polite cruelty that was far worse than open hostility. Lyndon tried to interject, to steer the conversation, but he was like a dinghy trying to nudge a battleship. He was outmaneuvered at every turn. In the car on the way home, the silence was heavy and suffocating. I finally broke it. "Well, that was fun. I think your mother is considering having my DNA tested to see if I'm descended from actual peasants." Lyndon winced, gripping the steering wheel. "I'm so sorry, Thea. She was difficult." "Difficult?" I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Lyndon, she practically asked for my financial statements over the soup. She thinks I'm a gold digger. A poorly dressed gold digger who doesn't know which fork to use for the fish course. She's just not used to someone like you." "You mean someone who has to work for a living? Someone whose last name isn't on a building?" My voice was rising, fueled by the humiliation of the past 2 hours. "Why didn't you say something, Lyndon? You just sat there while she put me under a microscope." "I tried," he insisted. "You don't understand. I've never brought anyone home that she didn't approve of beforehand. This is new territory for me, too." "Well, congratulations," I said, turning to look out the window at the city lights streaking by. "Your new territory feels a lot like a minefield, and I think I just stepped on the first one." A week later, a delivery truck pulled up outside the Gilded Crumb. 2 men unloaded a massive, ornate espresso machine, all gleaming chrome and polished brass. It was a work of art. It also cost more than my car. The attached card was simple, printed on thick, creamy stock. "A little something to help your ambitious little venture. Regards, Eleanor." It wasn't a gift. It was a power move. A declaration. "Your little bakery is cute, but this is what real success looks like. This is what my world can offer you, little girl." I felt a hot flush of anger. I called Lyndon immediately. Your mother sent me an industrial grade status symbol espresso machine. Oh, he said, sounding flustered. Well, that's nice of her? No, Lyndon, it's not nice. It's patronizing. It's her marking her territory. I can't accept it. Thea, just keep it. It'll be more trouble than it's worth to send it back. Don't let her get to you. But she was getting to me. I spent the next day arranging for the machine to be shipped back to the Vance Tower, along with a polite but firm note on my own bakery's stationery, thanking her for the thought but explaining that I already had a perfectly functional machine that I'd saved for a year to buy myself. It felt like a small victory, but I knew I'd only poked the bear. The following Monday, the bear poked back. It started with the online reviews. Overnight, the Gilded Crumbs 5-star rating plummeted. A dozen one-star reviews appeared, all posted within the same hour. They were vicious and oddly specific. The croissants were stale, tasted like cardboard. Found a hair in my scone. Disgusting. Owner was incredibly rude when I pointed out the mold on the bread. Mold. I had never had mold in my life. I scrubbed my shop from top to bottom every single night. These were lies, coordinated lies. My blood ran cold. This had Eleanor's fingerprints all over it. It was sophisticated, deniable, and aimed directly at my livelihood. I spent the day frantically replying to the comments, asserting their falsehood, but the damage was done. Regulars asked me what was going on. New customers hesitated at the door, then walked away. Then came the visit from the health inspector. He was a grim-faced man who seemed determined to find fault. He measured the temperature of my refrigerators 3 times. He swabbed surfaces for testing. He spent 2 hours scrutinizing my records, my ingredient storage, every nook and cranny of my kitchen. It was an unprecedented level of scrutiny. He finally left, handing me a list of minor, almost laughable violations: a container of flour that was an inch too close to the wall, a slight crack in a floor tile behind the oven. The message was clear. We are watching you, and we can shut you down. I sank onto a flour sack, the official-looking clipboard in my hands, and for the first time, I felt true despair. This was a war I couldn't win. I was bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. Lyndon found me there that evening, surrounded by the scent of unsold bread. I told him everything, my voice flat and defeated, his face hardened. She wouldn't, he whispered, but there was no conviction in his voice. She's my mother. She's a woman who is used to getting her way, Lyndon, I said, my voice trembling. And I am in her way. He paced the length of my small shop, running a hand through his hair. I'll fix this. I'll give you the money. We can renovate, hire a public relations firm to handle the reviews. He was trying to solve the problem the only way he knew how: by throwing money at it. No, I said, standing up. The exhaustion was suddenly replaced by a sharp, brittle anger. No, you don't get it. I don't want your money, Lyndon. I want this to be mine. The wins, the losses, the cracked floor tiles, all of it. If you just pay to make it all go away, then she wins. She proves her point. She proves that I can be bought, that my business can be bought, that your affection for me can be bought, and I will not let that happen. So what do we do? He asked, looking lost and helpless. It was a role I wasn't used to seeing him in. I don't know what we do, I said, the words hurting me as much as they hurt him. But I know what I have to do. I have to fight this myself. I think maybe you should go. The look on his face broke my heart. But having him here, offering solutions from a world I couldn't access, made me feel even more powerless. He left without another word, the little bell on my shop door ringing softly in the heavy silence. The next few weeks were a battle. I fought for my bakery with everything I had. I posted videos online, showing my process, the cleanliness of my kitchen. I talked to my regulars, my real customers, and they rallied around me. They left glowing, heartfelt reviews that drowned out the fake ones. A local food blogger, a loyal customer, wrote a huge piece defending me, calling out the suspicious nature of the sudden negative wave. It was a slow, grueling climb back. I was exhausted, but I was surviving. I missed Lyndon with an ache so profound it felt physical, but I couldn't call him. It felt like admitting defeat. One evening there was a knock on the shop door long after I'd closed. It was Lyndon. He looked different. The easygoing softness in his eyes was replaced by a hard, determined glint. He held out a tablet. "I need to show you something," he said, his voice grim. On the screen was a chain of emails. They were from his mother, Eleanor, to a man named Arthur Fleming, who I vaguely recognized as a member of the Vance Corporation's board. The emails were chillingly clear. Eleanor was instructing him to apply pressure on the city's Department of Health regarding a list of small businesses. My bakery was at the top. She talked about using their marketing subsidiary to manage the online reputation of certain establishments. It was all there, in black and white, the blueprint for my destruction. "How did you get this?" I whispered. "Arthur Fleming has always been loyal to my father," Lyndon said. "My father might have built the empire, but he never played dirty like this. Arthur thought I should know what she was doing. He said she was trying to acquire the building my shop is in through a shell corporation. The plan was to terminate my lease." I stared at the screen, a cold dread washing over me. This went so much deeper than I had imagined. She wasn't just trying to scare me, she was trying to erase me. "Lyndon, don't," he said, holding up a hand. "Don't say anything. For the last month I've been a coward. I've been letting you fight my battle, a battle my own mother started. I kept trying to fix it from inside her world, playing by her rules, but her rules are rigged. So, I'm done playing." He looked at me, his blue eyes intense. "The annual Vance Foundation Gala is tomorrow night. It's my mother's biggest event of the year. I need you to be there with me." "Lyndon, no, I can't. I'll be walking into the lion's den." "You won't be walking in," he said, a faint, dangerous smile on his lips. "You'll be arriving with the lion." The next night, I felt like an imposter in a borrowed gown. It was a simple, dark green velvet dress that I'd bought from a second-hand boutique, but Lyndon had looked at me as if I were wearing stars. We arrived at the Grand Museum where the gala was held, a river of jewels and designer labels flowing up the marble steps. As we walked in, a hush fell over the immediate area. Heads turned. Whispers started like a ripple in a pond. Lyndon's hand was firm on the small of my back, a solid, reassuring anchor. We saw Eleanor near the grand ballroom entrance. She was holding court, laughing with the senator. When she saw us, her smile froze on her face. The mask of polite society slipped for just a second, revealing the cold fury beneath. She was standing with a stunning young woman in a red dress, who looked just as surprised to see me. This must have been the appropriate date she'd arranged. Eleanor excused herself and glided towards us, her movements tight with anger. "Lyndon, what is the meaning of this? You were supposed to be bringing Caroline." She didn't even acknowledge my existence. "Plans change, Mother," Lyndon said, his voice calm and clear, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I'm here with Thea, the woman I love." He then turned to me, ignoring his mother completely. "Thea, there's someone I want you to meet, Arthur Fleming." He guided me toward the older gentleman he'd mentioned, who gave me a kind, weary smile. Eleanor was left standing there, her face a mask of thunder. Her public humiliation had begun, but I knew the final confrontation had to be mine. Later, while Lyndon was being cornered by a group of his father's old business associates, I saw my chance. Eleanor was standing alone for a moment on a terrace overlooking the city lights. I took a deep breath and walked towards her. "It's a beautiful party, Eleanor." I said, standing beside her. She didn't look at me. You have a lot of nerve showing up here. I was invited, I said softly. But that's not why I came. I came to tell you that you've lost. Her head snapped towards me, her eyes blazing. I have lost nothing. You are a temporary amusement. A brief, embarrassing chapter that will soon be over. I am terminating your lease. Your little shop will be gone in a month. You're right, I said, and she looked momentarily confused. You can take the shop. You can take the building. But you seem to think that's what I want, that I'm trying to get from my world into yours. I leaned forward slightly. You have it all backwards, Eleanor. I'm not trying to get into your world. I was trying to pull Lyndon out of it, and I've succeeded. Just then, Lyndon walked up behind us. He had heard my last words. He slid his arm around my waist, pulling me close. She's right, Mother, he said, his voice ringing with a finality that made Eleanor flinch. I've spent my entire life in this golden cage. I'm done. I'm stepping away from the Vance Corporation. All of it. Eleanor paled, her carefully constructed composure finally cracking. You wouldn't dare. This company is your birthright. No, Lyndon said, looking at me. This is my birthright. A life that I choose. A person that I choose. You tried to ruin her, but all you did was show me how small and fearful your world really is. He then looked at her, his eyes cold. Arthur Fleming showed me the emails, Mother. I know everything you did, and now, so do the trustees of this foundation. The color drained from her face completely. She had lost. Not just the battle for her son, but the respect and power she craved. She was exposed, isolated on a terrace full of people who now knew the truth. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. I looked at Eleanor, a woman who had everything and nothing, and I almost felt pity for her. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. There was nothing left to say. Lyndon took my hand, and we walked away from her, back into the glittering party. But we weren't a part of it anymore. We were just two people, finally on our way home. 6 months later, the air in my new shop smelled of yeast, chocolate, and fresh paint. It was twice the size of the old one, on a sunny corner lot, with huge windows that bathed the counter in morning light. The Gilded Crumb 2.0, Lyndon called it. He was sitting at a table, intensely focused on piping a shaky line of pink frosting onto a cupcake. Most of it was ending up on his fingers. Are you sure you're from a family of corporate titans? I teased, wiping a smudge of flour from his nose. Your fine motor skills are a disaster, he grinned, the lopsided grin I'd fallen in love with. My talents are in mergers and acquisitions, and loving you, not in dessert decorating. After the gala, he had been true to his word. He'd formally resigned from his position at Vance Corp, cashing out a small trust fund his grandfather had left him enough to be comfortable, but not enough to be Vance Corporation rich. He'd invested a portion of it, as a silent partner, in my new bakery. Eleanor had retreated. We heard she'd taken an extended trip to Europe. Lyndon received stilted, formal emails from her occasionally, but the war was over. The little bell on the door jingled, and a line of Saturday morning customers started to form. Lyndon looked at me over his massacred cupcake, his eyes full of a quiet, steady happiness that $1 billion fortune could never buy. You know, he said, I think this ambition is much better than gluten-free brioche. I smiled, my heart so full I felt it might burst. I told you it was a serious relationship, I said, leaning in to steal a kiss, my world finally, beautifully, and completely my own.